All right, just want to make sure. Ooh. Okay, I'll try and hold it right about here. So this afternoon, we're going to start talking about relational triangles, and we're going to finish it up this evening. So we'll be doing an hour and a half now, and then we'll pick it up again at 6:30. Thank you for those of you who were able to come in person, and blessings on you who were able to join online. We're going to start with a quick prayer. Father God, I thank you for this opportunity to talk about relationships. I pray that you give us more insight and wisdom into how we can be more like you. Amen. All right, we're going to start with an improvised story. So I have 10 years experience doing improvisational theater, so I will start the story, but I'll call on you to kind of help fill in some of the details. Here we go. So once upon a time, there was a nurse named, someone give me a nurse name. What do you say? Pamela? Excellent nurse name, yeah. Pamela was a nurse. And she worked at, what hospital did she work at? Something, what do you say, regional? Ogden Regional. Pamela worked at Ogden Regional, that's right. She worked at Ogden Regional. And every Tuesday night when she got off of work, she had to go to the grocery store because Tuesday night her family always had something special for supper. What was it that the family had special for supper every Tuesday night? There we go, thank you, appreciate that. Pamela went to the grocery store to get some provender for taco night. Every Tuesday was taco night. And so she gets all of her stuff, she tries to decide which lane to go in, tries to figure out which lane to go in, which is gonna be the fastest. She gets in line, she's the next person, but the person in front of her does something to slow the whole process down. What does that person in front of her do that slows the whole process down? Writes a check. Okay, so this person brings out the check. And does this person have a pen with them? No, no pen. And does the cashier have a pen? No. So the cashier has to call a manager. Manager comes with a pen. By this time, Pamela's starting to get a little bit antsy, right? She's got to get home. She's got to do some prep work to do, et cetera, et cetera. So she's trying to calm down. She's kind of starts to heavy breathe. And then the person behind her says something that really sets her off. What does the person behind Pamela say? This is so stupid. Ooh, the S word. This is so S word. And Pamela says, I know if this person would just hurry up. Of course, when someone's applying pressure to you and you're trying to write your name, you can drop the pen. And so it takes this person an extra long time, finally fills out the check, gets their groceries, goes off. And when it's Pamela's turn to have her stuff all scanned, she says something to the cashier. What does she say? What does Pamela say to the cashier to express her frustration? Writing checks would be against the law. Ooh, ooh. And the cashier goes beet red. Because it's the cashier's first day at the grocery store. And it was the cashier's recommendation, you can do cash or card or check. And so the person in front of Pamela said, I can do check. And the cashier said, yeah, go ahead and do a check. And so the cashier is just mortified. I can't believe I'm slowing down the process. There's this big pin that the cashier has on their lapel saying, first day in training. So Pamela goes through. She's really upset. She gets her groceries, huffing and puffing all the way to the parking lot. And as she's backing out, we know the story, right? Yeah. She just nicks a little piece of someone's nice blue pickup truck. Pamela looks in her rearview mirror, doesn't really see very much, thinks, this is probably okay. I'm just going to go home. Goes home. 10 minutes later, the person of this nice new pickup truck comes out, sees this. It's not big, but it's like a week-old pickup truck, and sees this little scratch right near where the gas gauge, where you put in the gas. And this person goes, what? I just got this. They start to seethe inside. So they get in the pickup truck, and they fly down the highway, and they start going 50, 60, 70, 80, doesn't care, it's my pickup truck, I'm gonna go as fast as I want. And then what happens? Crash. A crash. Not a big crash, but hits a bird, right? Hits a bird, so now the windshield is cracked. So there's a scratch on the back, the windshield is cracked. By the time this person gets home, they're so frustrated. So when they come in the door, there's this little tiny dog that comes up to greet them, and what happens? Kicks the dog. Sounds like some of us know this story. Kicks the dog. This dog is a little dog, and the type of dog is a Chihuahua, thank you, a Chihuahua dog. And normally Chihuahuas are not, this Chihuahua in particular is not treated in this way. Wow, the Chihuahua makes the noise, runs to the backyard, and one of the kids at the house like gets really mad at Dad and goes out and tries to console the dog, but the dog is already digging, digs under the fence and escapes the house. And the Chihuahua runs over to the neighborhood park where there are some other people playing. And someone, oh, there's a dog. Someone tries to come up and pet the dog, and what happens? Oh, more people know the story. This is good. And the dog bites the child. Not a big bite, just a little bit on the forearm. The parents, this is their first child. Oh no, I'm going to pick up the child. Are you okay? Are you okay, Johnny? Are you okay? Goes home, washes the wound. And Johnny says, oh, I kind of have a headache. Oh, you'll be okay. In the morning, the wound is kind of like red. It's like, oh, you know what? Let's just better be safe than sorry. So they take the child to, what is it, Ogden Regional. And who's there at Ogden Regional? Pam. Pam's there, yeah. So we know the story. So, question is, whose fault is it? It's Pam. Why is it Pam's fault? Yeah, so that was her fault. Yeah, okay. Is there anybody else that's at fault? Okay, the truck driver. Okay, who else is at fault? The dog. Okay, who else is at fault? Everyone. Okay. Everyone is at fault. When we experience upsetness or tension or conflict, it's really easy to pass that anxiety on to someone else, right? It might look different, but it's cyclical, it's circular. It goes around in a circle. I don't know if I believe in karma, but it definitely passes around. And what goes around comes around, and then Pamela has to deal with this child. Does she know the story? No. But she definitely has to deal with the outcome of something that she participated in. How are you feeling about this idea? Okay. This is what happens in our relationships. We experience something, we pass on this hot potato to someone else. They take it, they pass this hot potato on to someone else, and it just kind of goes around, do-si-do, ring around the rosy, and it's probably going to come back to us, and we're going to have to deal with it sometime. Because passing on hot potatoes does not deal with the conflict. It does not deal with the anxiety. It just pushes it around. And that's one of the things we're talking about today. I have a few of these little memes up there, which gives me a moment to get a drink of water. You get a break from Bryan. And one of the big things we'll be thinking about today is whether or not this is my problem or it's someone else's problem. Is this my problem or someone else's problem? Because there are these patterns in our family, and we can say it ran in my family until it ran into me, and you can make some changes different from previous people in your family, and one of those decisions is it my problem or someone else's problem? So I want that to be in the background as we're talking for the next 45, 50 minutes. So by the end of this seminar, I'm hoping it'll be a few things that you'll understand. One, the formation, the attributes, the dynamics of a relational triangle, what that might look like. So understand what that is. We'll also understand how we can recognize our own role that we play in relational triangles. And then later on tonight, we'll talk about our position in the triangle, the stability or instability of the triangle, and then finally, how we can learn how to de-triangulate ourselves, get ourselves out of the triangle, or at least de-triangulate in such a way that hot potatoes are not passed in our direction. Okay, so 2 pieces, one this afternoon, we're more theoretical, we'll get a little bit into practical, but then tonight, definitely more practical, hands-on, what do we do in our relationships? And there should have been some handouts passed around. If you have them, take one down, pass it around, so that you can follow along, if you so desire. So I'm a marriage and family therapist, but right now we're not doing therapy, right? I'm just presenting ideas. So I'm more in the role of like a family life educator, talking about conceptually, theoretically, what are relational triangles. So I don't know your situations. I don't know if there's danger or safety involved or considerations you need to be thinking about. So in your own life, it's hard for me to make specific recommendations because I don't know everything about your context. So I'm hoping to introduce us to these ideas, and by the end of the seminar, you'll be able to have some practical things you can do to de-triangulate yourself. But again, I don't know all the specifics of your life, so it's going to be more difficult for me to tell you specifically what you need to do in every specific instance. So sometimes, especially as Christians, we feel like we can be heroes. If people are experiencing distress, we can come in as the hero, and we can accept the invitation to get involved in their business And we can spend a lot of emotional energy dealing with other people's problems and not have enough emotional capacity to deal with our own issues. In fact, sometimes it's easier to take care of other people's stuff. I moved about a month and a half ago, and I did not enjoy packing or moving my boxes at all. It's not fun looking at all these things, have to make 1,000 decisions what goes in the box, what goes to Goodwill, what do I keep, where does it go? I do not enjoy making all these decisions. I do not enjoy packing my own boxes, but I love packing other people's boxes because it doesn't matter what it is. Put it in the box, take it up, ship it out. I don't care. But when it's my own stuff, I have to make all these different decisions. It's similar in some ways, helping other people deal with their problems. It's theirs, so we have a little bit of distance from it. But when it's in ours, it's all up in our face, we're really close to it, it can be pretty uncomfortable. So I thought we would talk about one of our favorite things today when it comes to families, and I'm hoping we're all on the same page. So I want us to think about what is our favorite thing to talk about when it comes to families. Just kind of like think about it in your head. I'll give you another minute or, a few seconds. Think about what is your favorite thing to talk about when it comes to families. And I'm going to count down from 10 to 1. And when we get to 1, we're all going to say that favorite thing out loud. And I'm pretty sure we're all going to be on the same page. Ready? So think about what's your favorite thing when it comes to talking about families. We'll go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In-laws. In-laws. So we're going to be talking about in-laws because there's some in-law stuff that happens in the Bible. In fact, this famous story of Jacob's deception of Jacob's deception of Isaac, this all has to do with in-laws. Now, the Genesis story, there are some artificial chapter separations that were added on later on, and there's even some titles right here. The title of this chapter 27 of Genesis is Jacob's deception. So someone's already told us what this story is about, right? But if we know the story, who's behind Jacob's deception? Rebecca, right? It's Rebecca who's pulling the strings, right? She's like the puppet master trying to pull strings. But why is Rebecca pulling strings? And the answer is, right before this chapter separation, we find a really big clue. So we know that Rebecca hears Esau talk with Isaac, and Isaac says, go out and get some game, come back and prepare it for me so I can bless you. So Rebecca says to her son, behold, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau, saying, ... But here's what happened right before the story. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, the daughter of Beri, the Hittite, and Basemath, what a sweet name, Basemath, the daughter of Elon, the Hittite, and they brought grief to Isaac and Rebekah. So, if you remember the story, at this point in time, Jacob has tricked Esau out of the birthright, right? So he's going to get a greater inheritance. And now Rebekah's thinking, man, if I can get him to get the blessing as well, he'll have the birthright and the blessing, because right now, Esau is the oldest son. And Esau is going to receive the blessing from Isaac. And we know that Rebekah has a strong preference for Jacob, and Isaac prefers Esau. So there's some conflict between Isaac and Rebekah and these daughters-in-law. Are we seeing that? And the idea is, if Esau is going to receive the blessing, he's going to be the firstborn, he's going to carry on, he's going to be in charge of caring for everyone. And so that means Rebekah is going to have to live with him. And Rebekah has her preferred son, Jacob. If I can get Jacob to get the blessing and the birthright, and we'll see later on in the story, find someone that I approve of to marry, then things will be okay. Because right now, she is not getting along with her daughters-in-law. That's the whole reason for this deception. That's what's behind this. So we know what happens later on in the story. We know Jacob comes in, deceives his father, and then Esau comes, and after he finds out what happened, how the birthright was taken from him, he says, the days of mourning for my father are near, then I will kill my brother Jacob. So in one half of a verse, Esau says this. Look what Rebekah does. She takes this one half of a verse about this promise to kill Jacob, and she blows it up to all like 1, 2, 3, 4 verses. Makes a big deal about it, right? She makes a huge deal. She amplifies it like, behold, your brother Esau is consoling himself concerning you and planning to kill you. Now then, my son. obey my voice and arise, flee to Haran, to my brother Laban. Stay with him a few days, just a few days, right? Until your brother's fury subsides, until your brother's anger against you subsides and forgets what you did to him. Then I will send word and get you from there. Why should I lose you both in one day? So she makes a big deal about this, right? And then she turns to Isaac and she says, I'm tired of living because of the daughters of Heth. Those are her daughters-in-law. If Jacob takes a wife from the daughters of Heth, like these from the daughters of the land, not the Hittite, the daughters of the land, what good will my life be to me? So Rebekah is really interested in getting her preferred son to marry someone that understands how to run the tent hold. In fact, go back to my family, find someone from my family that I would approve of, then bring her back. This is what Rebekah is thinking. So all of this whole deception that ends up fracturing the family is because Rebekah had difficulty with her daughters-in-law. In-laws are difficult, right? Because when we are children, we have our parents, and we might have grandparents set A, grandparents set B, maybe C or D if there's a divorce in the family. But as a child, it's not that big of a deal. Oh, they're just grandparents. But if you have parents-in-law, it's a big deal because they run things differently. They cook things differently. They clean and organize differently. The way they walk around and greet people is different. And we sense that difference, and that dissonance can be unpleasant. And that's what's happening here for this same biblical family. So then Isaac doubles down on what Rebekah told Jacob to do. So Isaac calls Jacob and blessed him and commanded him, saying to him, you shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Paddan-aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and from there take for yourself a wife from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. So making sure, hey, we got to get this going. So behind the scenes, again, is Rebekah doing all of this because she has difficulty getting along with her in-laws. So if you have difficulty with in-laws, it's biblical. It's normal. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's normal, and it even happened in this family. And the narrator thought it was important enough to include these specifics so we could understand this is sometimes challenging, right? But the way that Rebekah went about it kind of went overboard, right? There were lots of other options. She could have started with praying about it. She could have used the Matthew 18 principle with her daughters-in-law. She could have held a family meeting with Esau and the daughters-in-law. She could have agreed to disagree with the daughters-in-law. But instead, she convinced her favorite son to dress up with goatskin and swindle the blessing from her legally blind husband and then scare Jacob out of town to obtain a approved wife from her family back in Paddan-aram. So this is a very convoluted way to deal with a challenge with an in-law, right? Or maybe not. Maybe like, man, but this is seems pretty simple according to how my family deals with in-laws. I don't know if you enjoy having them over for Easter brunch or for Christmas, or if it's a little bit tense during those moments. But imagine your in-laws are living with you in the same tent hold. In some cultures, this is totally normal. Here in the Western world, where we have a little more individualized approach, this is not quite as normal. And sometimes the differences can rub us the wrong way. And detriangulation is probably the most important technique when it comes to doing marriage and family therapy. But it's not just marriage and family therapy. I think it's just daily life. When I was a pastor for 3 years up in Seattle, Washington, I ran into this all the time, and I didn't know what was happening. I didn't understand how I was just kind of pulled around to different relationships. I didn't understand what triangulation was. I had no idea. But now that I understand what it is, I operate my life in a very different manner because I'm able to see what's happening. So I'm hoping to kind of remove the curtain and see what's happening in the relationships. You can have a better understanding about what you want to do in your relationships. For people who like math, you can figure out the number of triangles in the room by using these formulas. So if you start with 3 people, there's only 1 triangle. If there's 4 people in the room, there's 4 triangles. If there's 10 people in a room, there's 120 possible triangles. If there's 300 people, there's a lot of triangles. So we are always in triangles, but we're not always actively involved in them. But there's lots of triangle possibilities. How are we feeling about this idea? Yeah? Okay. So let's go over a few quick scenarios about different triangles and what happens. So on this left-hand side, we have this couple that has some conflict. It could just be 2 people at Sabbath school have some conflict, or 2 friends, or 2 neighbors, or 2, who cares? There's some conflict between them, and in this unstable dyad, the addition of a third party can change their relationship. If I include a new person to this dyad to make it a triad, that can change the relationship between these two people. Likewise, these two people over here are getting along fine. You include someone new, all of a sudden the addition of a new person changes the relationship between these two. For example, let's say these two people are having maybe they're at Sabbath school and they're disagreeing about some theological point. And then someone walks in with a cup of coffee. Oh boy. Well, we may disagree about something theologically, but we both know that caffeine is not appropriate. And all of a sudden, these two people are in alliance, and we have a common enemy. Until this enemy leaves, and then we go back to arguing, okay? Over here, these two people might get along, maybe they're a couple, they get along fine, and then all of a sudden, a baby's thrown in the mix, and they have a whole bunch of new responsibilities, and so their relationship changes. All of a sudden, they have less time to interact and work on their relationship because they're so focused on the baby. So in this scenario, the addition of someone changes the relationship between the dyads. The reverse is also true. Let's say these two people, they don't get along because they want to watch TV, but they're disagreeing about what news program to watch. Do I watch CNN? Do I watch Fox? And they're fighting about it, right? In this situation, maybe these two people, they get along in Sabbath school. Maybe because the Sabbath school leader is such a gentle person and a good facilitator of discussions, and they get along. But this person who's in charge of Sabbath school, they move down to Reno, Nevada. So they're no longer leading the Sabbath school. And all of a sudden, because this calming presence left, these two might start experiencing conflict. And over here, in this situation, once we just turn off the TV, then we might get along okay. Because triangles aren't just about people. You can also have another party or a hobby or a career involved in the triangle. And when you remove them, that can change the relationships. Ask me a question about this before I move on. Should I interpret the silence as I don't know what question to ask? Or should I interpret it as I totally understand, I have no questions? I don't know what to ask. Okay. Well, maybe we'll keep moving on. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to start thinking of relationships not in terms of twos, but in terms of threes. Because regardless of whether or not the dyad has conflict or no conflict, the addition or the removal of another person into that mix can change what happens within those two people. So when a new person comes into the room, so if we're having a conversation and then Pastor Abel comes in, that might change how we interact because a new person just entered. If someone comes in that is a common enemy, not Pastor Abel, a common enemy, that might change the way we interact because all of a sudden like, oh, there's this person comes in we both don't like, so now we are in alliance that we don't like this person. That changes our dynamic. So I want you to think of relationships in terms of threes, not twos. In fact, even in the first human relationship, Adam and Eve, it wasn't just Adam and Eve, right? Adam and Eve and God, Adam and Eve and the deceiver. It's not just two people. And sometimes we think the relationship is just, I'm getting some tingles, it's just about two people, and it's not. There's always at least one third party that's part of the relationship. Are they always present physically? No, but they might be present psychologically, and that's affecting the relationship. So I want you to think of relationships in terms of threes, not twos. Because if you can see relationships about threes, you will open up and expand your perspective of what's happening in the relationships in your family. It'll give you quite a bit of power to see new things that you didn't see before. So triangles are the basic building blocks of relationships. If you're not on board with this assumption, the rest of this seminar is going to be pretty boring because I'm putting down roots in this idea that triangles are the basic building blocks of relationships. So when there's this three-person emotional configuration, what can happen is hot potatoes, anxious hot potatoes, are passed amongst those three people. So the third person can be a pet, it can be a career, it can be a hobby, it can be a substance, it can be a friend, it can be someone who has passed away that someone is still very attached to and still thinking about constantly. It can be a sports team. Sometimes there's something called interlocking triangles, where you and me and you, we're in this triangle together. You give me a hot potato, I give you a hot potato, you're in a triangle, the gentleman behind you and the woman next to you, so you pass on hot potato there, and all of a sudden, this hot potato is passed around just like our story of Pamela. So we can have these interlocking triangles where one person's upsettedness in this form of this hot potato can be passed from person to person to person. Now, normally, two people can get along as long as things are stable, there's no conflict, nobody's fighting. But as soon as there's a lot of tension, usually one or both members of that little dyad will seek someone else or something else out to relieve some of the distress that they're experiencing. So when anxiety increases beyond what two people can manage, they find a third person, or they find a new hobby, or they pour themselves into work, or they start watching more TV, whatever it is, because of the tension between two people. So the flow is there's distress in the dyad, two people having difficulty getting along, and then they pass that anxiety on to someone else, or they pour that into some sort of maladaptive coping mechanism or into work. And what happens is, if there's a new person that's involved, this new person, maybe this confidant, I come and talk with this person like, boy, me and my coworker Jeff are not getting along. Let me tell you about Jeff. So I tell this coworker about Jeff. All of a sudden, this coworker starts to form an opinion about Jeff. They may have never met Jeff. They don't know Jeff from Adam. But because I'm talking about Jeff with them, they're starting to get emotionally involved in what's happening. Oh man, that sounds terrible, Bryan. How are you going to handle Jeff? I don't know. Well, let me tell you what I did when I had some difficult coworkers. And all of a sudden, we're working together about my problem with Jeff. And so I find this other person to carry some of my anxiety that I can't handle with Jeff. And it becomes this multi-level marketing scheme where we find other people to pour our anxiety onto so they can take some of that from us. And then they pass it to another person, and they pass it to another person. And then that person goes home and says, I was just talking with Bryan this past weekend, and he has this coworker named Jeff. And then we tell a story about Bryan and Jeff. And then this other friend's partner says, oh, that sounds terrible. Did you tell him about trying this? Oh, no, I'll try it. I'll go back and tell him. This person calls me, hey, Bryan, my partner and I were talking about you and Jeff, and we thought you might want to try this idea. Oh, that's a good idea. And all of a sudden, I have this team of people helping me with my problems. What happens is this team of people ends up taking on some of my anxiety, and then they're thinking about that. They are like waking up in the middle of the night, oh, Bryan should do this when it comes to Jeff, because they're caring individuals and they want to help me. The challenge is it's not their problem to fix. In fact, the more they get involved in other people's problems, the more they take on and experience some of the stress of that relationship. Say it again. The more I get involved in other people's problems, the more I take on some of the stress of their relationship in my own life. So if I'm helping 4 different groups of people with their stuff, I'm experiencing 4 other sources of stress because I'm trying to help out. If I'm trying to help 10 different people, I'm experiencing 10 other sources of distress above and beyond what's on my own plate. Because the more I get involved, the more I experience the stress of that relationship. So we need to be very clear about what is mine, what is yours. I like this. If you've ever done me wrong, just know my mom knows and she doesn't like you. Because I've told her about you, and she's already formed an opinion about you, even though she's never met you. She's taken on some of that hot potato-ness that I tried to pass to her because of stuff between you and I. And now she's formed an opinion about you before she's ever met you. This hot potato, it's super tempting to pass it on to other people. And it's even more tempting to take it from other people, especially when we feel like we're helping, right? When we're helping them relieve what's on their plate. And most people in relationships are behaving in response to the anxieties rather than each other. When we get anxious, stressed, we behave differently. And that's what's often motivating our behavior. So, triangling is both an emotional process and an anxiety binding process that shifts, that moves the anxiety around a system which might have a high degree of emotional intensity. What does this mean? That means that some triangles feel stable. Like, oh, okay, I feel stable here. I know where everything is at. Some triangles feel unstable. Whoa, this is a little bit rocky. Something needs to change. We'll be going over this several times the rest of the day. And anxiety is transferable or contagious like a hot potato. I can pass this on to you. We can talk about stuff. And I'm telling you about my difficult day, and then, wow, that is difficult. And you might go home as you drive home thinking about my difficult day because I passed it on to you. And there can be this domino effect among the interlocking triangles. So one person's distress can pass to the next person, as in our story with Pamela. Triangles are forever, which means that even though one person might pass away in the family or the church family, it doesn't mean that the distress that you experience with them disappears. If there's a really difficult person in the family and they pass away, or they move away, they move over to England, or they move down to South America, so they're no longer part of the family, they've moved off, it does not mean that their anxiety disappears. The unresolved tension that you had with them, it doesn't disappear. It just gets redistributed amongst the rest of the living family members. So sometimes there's this idea that, like, okay, when this person passes away, then our family gatherings will be so much better. Not necessarily. Because all that unresolved tension just gets redistributed amongst everyone else who's present. And all of a sudden, other people that used to get along may suddenly not get along as well, because there's more hot potatoes in the mix. A lot of the stress we deal with is not our stress to deal with, but we become accustomed to helping other people with their problems. And so we become a broker of anxiety, taking on their problems, passing on to other people, taking other people's problems. So we just get used to shoveling these hot potatoes around. This says most people spend more energy working on other people's problems than we do working on our own problems. Change my mind. So triangles are actually useful in a certain capacity for some churches and some families, because if a church or a church family or a family have difficulty managing conflict, triangles are actually really helpful because, oh, I can't handle this, I'm going to give this to someone else. Oh, they can't handle this, give it to someone else. And all of a sudden there's this pattern of unresolved problems just passing around the circle, kind of like duck, duck, goose. We just kind of go around, tag someone to chase, tag someone. We just kind of pass it around. We're just throwing these potatoes around. So sometimes it's actually really helpful in the short term for families and churches to triangulate each other into other people's problems because it seems to provide some short-term stability. But a short-term coping mechanism spread out over a long period of time can have some unintended consequences. The more likely that people depend on triangulation to stabilize the system, okay, now I can handle this because I've passed a little bit on to someone else, the more likely that that anxiety is going to get caught and stuck within that family. And all of a sudden, someone's going to get burned, right? Someone's going to get burned. Someone is going to get so much anxiety sent their way, they're going to get burned, and it's going to be unpleasant. Here's some people who are juggling. Now, some of us in here might also be good at juggling, right? Our problems, other people's problems, and it may not seem too bad at first. Like, this is pretty good. He has like 3 little, what are those called, batons or bowling pins. Now here we have 2, there's 1, 2, it looks like 3 people all in agreement that we'll just pass stuff back and forth. Like my friends and I, we always talk about our problems. It's really nice to talk with them about it, get advice, they talk with someone else. It's nice to have a group of friends we can resolve all of our problems together with. But we're juggling so much in the air. What happens if we're not paying attention? Someone's gonna get hit, right? Or a baton is gonna get dropped. Something's gonna happen. In fact, it gets more crazy when the stakes are higher, right? What kind of problems are you juggling? Are you juggling chainsaws? Are you precariously balanced on someone else's shoulders? You're raising the stakes here, but yet we're still passing stuff around in our families and our churches, and it gets more and more risky the longer and longer you're willing to participate in this. In highly anxious and polarized families and churches, it becomes more difficult for the clinician or the pastor or who you are as a person to resist engaging in the triangle. The more polarized and anxious two people are, the more difficult it is to resist getting involved. Because there's a strong urge to be pulled in one direction, to side with one individual or side with the other. And sometimes we pride ourselves on being mediators. Well, I'll just be in the middle of the mix and help them figure out what's happening. Well, the more you participate in their distress, the more you experience some of the stress of that relationship. So middle children are really good at this. And they experience a lot of stress from the family, and their role in the family is to, whatever needs to be done, I'm going to just help calm everybody down. I'm just going to put out fires in the family, and that's my job. And they can experience quite a bit of anxiety, and they might get used to it. What would it be like if we were able to decide what's on our plate instead of always taking what someone else gives you? Objectivity is lost, and clinical intention is compromised, which means we're not actually able to see the forest for the trees. If we are involved in their stuff, it's actually really difficult to be objective about what should happen because it's up in our business, it's up in our face. We're experiencing some of the stress of that relationship. So one of the questions you might want to ask yourself is, are they helpless or do you want to feel needed? Because sometimes it feels really good to help other people, right? Man, I came in there, I provided a nice listening ear, we smiled, we hugged, we prayed, they went off, they felt so much better. Oh, I feel good about this. Like, I'm a good listener. And we can start to develop some stories about who we are, like they need me, they need my help. I'm their pastor, I'm their cousin, I'm their grandma. They're my friend. It's my responsibility to help my friends. I know what to do. I've been in this exact situation before. I have a lot of knowledge. In fact, I can come and rescue you and help you with your situation. I know how to fix this. So we start to tell ourselves narratives about who we are in relation to fixing other people's problems, right? And now this becomes part and parcel with regard to who we are. But it's not just our stories about ourselves. Other people also have stories about us. And they might start to expect for us to jump in and solve their problems. So the middleman who jumps in, who feels good about their job, kind of mediating stuff, they're actually getting roped in and they're getting suckered into other people's challenges. So again, the question is it your challenge to deal with or is it someone else's challenge to deal with? Because they'll feed you some lines to kind of rope you in, like, you're so good at listening, right? You're such a good listener. You've always been supportive. You see this, like pulling you in. Oh, it feels good to hear those things. Nobody understands me like you do. Oh man, this is so nice to hear. That's so nice to hear that someone cares for me. I can count on you. We need a mediator. Come quick. We have an emergency. Come and help us mediate our relationship. So there's all this idea that like you need to come in and join. And even the subtle phrase, I'm worried about so-and-so. This is a classic introduction to, here, I have a hot potato I'm about to hand you, right? Right. So it's similar to gossip. In fact, a lot of gossiping is handing out hot potatoes to whoever's willing to listen, right? And it's easier to pass on other people's hot potatoes than deal with your own. So worry, my concern for other people, is often used as a justification to get involved in their lives. But we end up training a very specific way of operating. So I'm guessing there's snow here once in a while, yeah? So what's happening here? What's happening in this picture? Snow, but what's happening to the snow? I couldn't quite hear. I see a hand in the back. Make it really loud. The snow is growing. And why is it growing? Because it's not plowed, or it's getting plowed that direction, right? How about this situation? What's this? Now we're blaming the snowplow's fault, right? Okay. Is this snow nice and soft and fluffy? How do you know? It's dirty, yes, in the back? It's old and packed together, exactly. And nobody wants to move this snow, right? I don't want to touch, I'll touch some of this, but I don't want to touch that. But look, this car is trapped, right? So this is what happens when snow is pushed around. Here's the situation. How am I going to get into my garage to back out when is this snow light or heavy? Heavy, yeah. How about this situation? So this is a storefront in Michigan, and the person who was in charge of so I don't know what they do here, but when I lived in Illinois and Michigan, there would be lots of pickup trucks that would just put the flat plow in front of the pickup truck. So like at 2:30 in the morning, they go and plow all of the different parking lots. This individual who was in charge of this truck had recently gone into this store, this was on the news, gone to this store to purchase something, did not like how he was treated. So the next day, he happened to be called to this exact store to clean, I see your hand, I'll get you just a second, to clean off this parking lot. But instead of cleaning it off, he shoved it all right up to the front door. So that all the patrons would have to step onto this snow and down the snow to get their stuff. And if I'm driving by and I need something at the store, I'll go, nope. I'll go somewhere else where the sidewalk's clean. Yes, there's a hand in the back. Yeah, the person in the store is being mean. And sometimes, if not just a person in the store, it can be someone in the family that's mean. And because of that, we start shoveling snow their direction. So the snow is not going anywhere, right? It's just getting shoveled around. In fact, you could conceivably have 10 houses in a row. One person shovels their driveway, puts all the snow on the next person's driveway. The next person now has their own snow and their neighbor's snow, shovels all that snow onto the third neighbor. The third neighbor has now 3 levels of snow, and we keep unloading it down the line because nobody wants to actually deal with it. They just want to remove it. That's what it's like in our families and for our own lives. We just want to remove stuff. Get it off my plate as fast as possible. Do whatever is expedient. Last night we saw this expediency in Abraham's family, right? I just want to deal with the problem. I just want to get it off my plate. I don't care what the consequences are down the road. Can you recall any other examples, any other triangles in Abraham's family? 3 people that are in some sort of relationship, that there's some sort of conflict. Jacob, Laban, and his wives. Excellent. So there's 4 people there. So there's 4 people. There's actually 4 triangles there. Awesome. Good. Another example of triangulation in the Abraham story. Hagar and Sarah and Abram. Good. There's another triangle. Awesome. Good. Any other triangles? 2 sons. So you mean Ishmael and Isaac and Abram? Okay. Mm-hmm. In fact, you choose any 3 people, there's a triangle there, right? Any 3 people, there's a triangle there. So it's easy to find triangles. So it's not like you have to look for them. You can find them anywhere. In fact, when you walk outside, when you walk to your next family gathering, just kind of notice, okay, I see how these 2 people are interacting. Oh, here's the 3rd person. Oh, they're talking about this person. I see how the conversation is moving around the room. Because triangles are normal. We're used to it. It doesn't mean they're good, but we're used to it. We're familiar with triangles, but we don't actually have to actively participate in them. And I'm hoping by the end of today, you'll be able to know, this is how triangles work. This is what they are. This is who I am, where I typically am in triangles. This is my position in the triangle, my role in the triangle, and then looking at the structure of the triangle itself. So we don't actually have to push around snow, right? We don't actually have to push around hot potatoes. Because when we're pushing around hot potatoes, we're not removing any hot potatoes. Those hard chunks of snow, this is going to last a long time, right? This has been compacted and pushed around. And some of that old stuff that we deal with that's not ours, this is heavy and it gets in the way. Let's pretend, I'm like, okay, well, Bryan said not to pass around anything, so I'm not allowed to move it. How am I going to get my car out? I'm guessing, if you're like me, there might be a few things in your life, you're like, I'm not going to touch that, I'm just going to go around it. Even if it's a little uncomfortable for me, but it's better than trying to deal with it. And the stuff we don't deal with, it stays there. It doesn't just disappear. Sweeping it under the rug, please. Is it going to go away? No, it's just for someone else to deal with. Well, you know it's there. You sweep more underneath the rug, and we are aware that it's under the rug. We can try and pretend like we don't know, but we know, and other people know. And it's totally affecting the way that we operate ourselves in life and how we walk around in our relationships. If you walk away from your family of origin with some unresolved tension, you're going to see that tension again over and over in other relationships. And it's going to feel like, wow, this again? I can't believe I have to deal with this stuff over and over again. I can't stand it. I wish people would just stop whatever they're doing. And it seems like the sweetest solution. If she would just stop doing that, if he would just never da-da-da, then we'd be okay, right? Not necessarily. Just because they stop their behavior still doesn't get rid of the issue that you have with that behavior in the first place. It just means that I don't have to think about the snow. So if they can stop doing that behavior, then I don't have to think about the snow. I can just close my curtains, lock my door, and never go outside. And sometimes that happens in certain relationships where we don't want to continue a relationship with other people because I'd rather not deal with them. I think this is sort of what's happening in the story with Rebecca. She does not like her daughters-in-law, does not want to deal with it, so she has this master plan, multi-step master plan to resolve the issue without actually addressing the issue. But we do this too. We do this too. Okay. So sometimes when we are carrying other people's burdens, we spend time thinking about it. We lose sleep over it. In fact, the more you find yourself getting involved in their business, the more time it's going to take out of your day. Now, there are times when safety is involved. There's a chance you might need to step in. I'm not saying you're not allowed to help, and we'll talk about how to decide how to judiciously, wise as serpents, gentle as doves, figure out how to get involved in other people's stuff. But oftentimes, we get involved in other people's business, and we take on that anxiety, and then we are carrying some of that for them for free, right? For free. And pastors are sometimes more susceptible to this than others because people will come to the pastor to unload a whole bucket full of hot potatoes that they don't know how to deal with. There's not just one person calling Abel or Natalie, right? There's lots of people, right? And I don't know what your certain stands are, boundaries with regard to phone. Is your phone on 24/7? Okay. So if his phone is on 24/7, then it means anybody can call him anytime they want to, right? And that's what it means to be a good pastor, right? Always available all the time to anyone who wants some help. Except Mondays. Okay, so we won't take hot potatoes on Mondays, but any other day, bring those hot potatoes to me. Right. So what happens is a church can expect pastors to always be available to take hot potatoes, right? Especially if previous pastors did that. Well, you need to come in. Here is a hallmark of a good pastor. They are always available to help me deal with my stuff anytime I want to. They don't say no because that's what a good Christian does. So we are demanding that they always get involved in our stuff. What happens if over let's say the course of 5, 10, 15, 20 years, a church is used to having a pastor always available whenever they want him or her? What happens to the church? Yeah, or burns out, right? You end up tapping out the pastor's emotional capacity to deal with stuff because you want them to help you, right? Okay, what else happens to the church? Dependent. Love that word, hate that word. The church becomes dependent on the pastor to, a little louder, to solve all their problems, right? And so when the pastor leaves, what happens to the church? Oh no, where's the person who's supposed to come and help us solve all of our problems? We need a new person, a new sacrificial lamb to come and help us solve all of our problems. And I don't know the history of this church, but some churches can have a high turnover rate, right? Every 2 or 3 years, a pastor burns out or the conference moves them, because some of those churches are more high maintenance. High maintenance is just a code word for they're expecting someone else to solve their problems. Needy, right. So if that's the big expectation of a pastor, if a pastor stops doing that, their church is going to protest, right? Where were you? I called you. I left you a message. I emailed you twice. Sunday at 10:30 p.m. and again at 11:15 p.m. And you didn't respond to my email on Sunday morning at 6:30 when I was having my breakfast. Like, why didn't you get back to me, right? And they're genuinely upset because they were expecting someone to ride. Yeah, they were upset to ride in on their horse to help save them, right? And so the church will become dependent on the pastor to solve their problem. If the pastor's not there, well, who's the next in command? Let's go to the elder. Okay, where is the deacon? All right, who do we talk to? Someone's got to come help me because this is what I'm used to. This is the pattern that I'm used to. So pastors have a difficult decision to make. Boy, do I help everyone all the time whenever they need it? And I teach them to stay dependent on me and never deal with their own stuff? Or do I have some hard boundaries and they might be really upset and even offended by it, right? How come you won't come help me? Oh boy, we're digging deep now. Like, I thought you were my pastor. Oh man, trying to get, okay, I'll come help this time. So people really who are dependent on others to help solve their problems will try every trick in the book to get you to come and help them solve their problems. So what happens this is, and we talked about this, people are dependent on others. Conflict is not managed directly. Instead, I need a third party to come and help me. Nobody assumes responsibility for what happens, right? Oh, this is easy. I'll just get someone to come and fix it. Pastor, come help me, right? Or maybe it's not, we'll move away from the church. We'll talk about your family. I'm guessing there's one or two people in your family that are really good at listening and calming other people down. And when we have a problem, we call them. We call Aunt Martha, and she shows up, and she talks with us over Zoom or over phone. Okay, I'll go talk with this person. Talk. I'll go talk with this person. So we have one person running errands to try and solve everybody else's problems. So what happens is anxiety and issues become stuck and frozen and part of the norm for this family because snow is just pushed around. And when this happens, this prevents growth and compromises objectivity. When there's so much snow, it's hard to move about freely. We have to move over this, step over this snowbank. Oh, don't want to look at that. I'm like, I don't even want to think about getting in that garage. We spend almost more emotional energy navigating our way around the hot potatoes than if we just dealt with the hot potatoes. Would you rather spend $100 once or $1 a day for 3 years? The idea, the prospect of dropping $100, ooh, unpleasant. I'd rather just nickel and dime and dollar it every single day for 3 years. We know our issues don't just stay around for 3. Sometimes it's 4, 5, a couple decades. It seems, because in the immediate moment, it's hard to want to address the issue. It's way easier to try and pretend like we don't actually have to address it. But we end up paying way more down the road. I mean, paying $1 for a few days, okay, that makes sense. But then eventually you're going to have to turn and face the music. Otherwise, you'll have this thing that you're paying $1 for, then there'll be another $100 charge you're just paying $1 for, $1 a day. And all of a sudden, the more you have, all of a sudden you'll be paying $100 a day because you never want to deal with the stuff. So, I've been talking quite a bit, and I need a drink of water, and I want to make sure that we are kind of getting a good handle on this. So what I want you to do, I want you to turn to some people around you, get in groups of like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, no more than that. And I want you to answer these questions. Just talk amongst yourselves. Figure out if you can explain it in your own words, explaining it to Charlie. Let's say Charlie's not here. Charlie doesn't know what we're talking about. So you're trying to explain this in language that he or she can understand. So what is a triangle? How do they work, right? What is a triangle, and what happens in the triangle? Why are triangles, not dyads, the basic building blocks of emotional systems? What are some of the reasons or the narratives we tell ourselves that we willingly participate in triangles? And then what happens to us or the other people in the system, the family system, the church system, when we all agree to participate in triangles? So turn to people around you and talk through these questions. One more minute. Yes, we are in a triangle right now. We are in a triangle right now. I'm not actively participating, but we're in the triangle right now. I'm cheating through teaching. Okay, help me out. What is an explanation that you heard either from your mouth or someone else in your group's mouth or someone behind you or in front of you? What is a triangle and how do they work? Yes, in the back. Good, a geometric triangle, 3 angles. Great. Sorry, I should have said, you're right. What is a relational triangle? 3 people. Good. 3 people. It could also be 2 people in a hobby, or 2 people in a career, or a career, an addiction, and another person, right? It's 3 parties. You usually think of it in terms of people, but if we can span it to, okay, now there's parties or addictions or hobbies, all of a sudden other people can be, because when there's 2 people who are married, it's not just always 2 people, right? There's always a third party, at least one, another family member, or one person who really likes playing the guitar, and all of a sudden the other partner starts to resent the fact that they're playing that guitar, right? And first they like the guitar, but then like, what? Again, right, again, again. And all of a sudden we start to get upset about the guitar, and then the first person says, well, I just love my guitar. You were okay with it at first. Well, if you're going to be snotty with me, I'm just go out to the garage and keep playing my guitar, right? And all of a sudden, the relationship is different because of the guitar, right? Good. Shoot, I kind of explained how they work. So that's how they work. Okay, having one of those parties is doing something and changing what's happening between the other people. So why are triangles, not dyads, the basic building blocks of emotional systems? It's always been that way. Good, it's always been that way. That's a great answer. Why else? What's happening? What can a triangle do that a dyad cannot? Three legs, more stable. Correct. 2 stable, you have to have a lot of balance, right? If there's 3 people, boom. Then all of a sudden, like, it's more stable, but that also means that we are passing stuff amongst each other. It's hard for you and I to pass the same hot potato. It's just in the middle of us. But we can find someone else. Oh, now we get a reprieve. It comes around. Now I'm anxious. Now I pass off the hot potato. So it can sometimes feel better. It feels more stable sometimes to have more people involved, because then we can juggle more hot potatoes. We can juggle more issues the more people that are there. Good. What are some reasons that we willingly participate in triangles? We care. Good, good. That is one of the best answers, because we care. And there's nothing wrong with caring. We should be caring, right? But we get involved because we care. Awesome. What's another reason we get involved in triangles? It's easier to deal with other people's problems than our own. That's right. That's right. Good. It's easier to play with other people's stuff, because then you can go home to your own house and not have the mess on the kitchen, right? If I'm going to go cook, I'd love to do it at someone else's house. Then they can clean off the counters, do all the dishes, right? I just walk home with my dozen muffins, right? But when it's your own house, like, there's some cleanup to do. Good. What's another reason we willingly participate in triangles? Our ego feels good, and our belief system, right? This is part of our belief system. Like, I don't just care, but like, it's important to care, right? It's important. This is how we should operate in society. Good, good. What happens to us, or what happens to the system when we continually enter into this social contract of engaging in triangles? Start with us, and then we'll go to the system. So what happens to us? Say it again. We get burnt out because we take on other people's stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what do you say? We bear the weight. Ooh, I don't like that. The baggage. And it's not always our baggage to carry, right? It's other people's baggage. Imagine going to the airport, you caring so much about other people that you are carrying everybody's baggage. No, I'll get that. No, you're stressed. You look tired. Let me help with your luggage. It can be rewarding. It can. It absolutely can be rewarding. It can feel good to like, wow, without me there, I don't know if they could have done this. They needed me. I was there. God put me there, right place, right time for such a time as this to help them. So there's some reward we can get out of helping other people, right? What? If it's temporary. Maybe. And what if we were enjoying it, though? I like helping you. You like me helping you. This is working well for everybody, right? You want me. I need to feel good. Like, this is just, like, it's a reciprocal relationship. We all get something out of it, right? So I'm not saying that all triangles are bad, because sometimes triangles help. They help stabilize the anxiety in a family or a church family, because we can juggle some things around. But when we never deal with stuff, that's when stuff swept under the rug just keeps getting dirtier and dirtier and dirtier, and then the rug will get dirty, especially if it starts to get wet. And then like there's mud under the rug. We keep pretending like it's not there. We keep shoveling snow around. We never actually deal with it. So that's what happens to us. What happens to the system when everyone participates in the triangle? Yeah, they don't solve their own problems. They learn that they need other people to solve their own problems. So for those of you who may have been parents or may have been able to be like an adult in a caring relationship for a niece or a nephew, do you always step in to do stuff for the kids, or do you let them struggle? Do you always tie their shoes every single time? So they're 17 years old. Help me out, right? I'm hungry, right? It's okay for kids to eat and get food all over their face. This is part of the process. If we are more concerned with needing to clean up mess, put that fork down. I will feed you. Mom, like, I have to go to my driver's test. You just sit down there. Let me cut this little piece of pizza really small for you and put it into your mouth. Oh, you want some water? Here's some juicy juice. Like, we could do that. And some parents do that to a certain degree, always trying to save their children from making messes, trying to save them from making mistakes. But it's way better to let the kids make mistakes when the stakes are low, right? Because they're going to make mistakes, and it's going to be a rude awakening when they end up leaving the house, maybe, leaving the house to go into the world, and all of a sudden, then they get to learn things when the stakes are higher. It's okay to let kids learn things and make mistakes and be messy. So if kids can handle it, why can't Say it one more time. They don't always want to be helped. Yeah, kids don't always want to be helped. That's right. That they do. I will do it. It's my turn. No, but I'm going to help you anyway because that's what I'm used to. I want to be needed as a parent. What would happen if we let other people also get a little cake on their face? It would be unpleasant for them. We would have to see it happening. Oh, no, oh, no, no. Oh, the pizza sauce dripping down the side. Oh, it's on their shirt now. I could have saved them. I could have stepped in to save. Oh, yes. Good. And they're going to get angry because they're protesting. They are used to getting help. They're used to having this third leg to be stabilized, and you're not there, so they trip and they fall on their face, and they call you up and they let you have it. How dare you abandon me, right? You start to use some big words, right? If you were really my aunt, my uncle, my cousin, my sister, my good neighbor, you would have never let this happen to me. Pointing the finger at you for their own problems. Because it hurts. It hurts when you're dependent on someone and they don't show up for you. That is very, very unpleasant. very unpleasant. But if you're training them to be dependent on you, maybe there can be a weaning process, right? We have to let kids learn how to do their own thing, and they're not going to do it as well as we do. I promise you, I am way better at putting on my socks than my 4-year-old. I promise. I can put on my socks, my shirt, my shoes, my pants, my belt, my jacket, my hat. I can go to the bathroom. I can wash dishes way faster than my daughter can do half of those things, right? Because I'm so much better at it. Because I had an opportunity to practice those things. Because my parents didn't rob me of the opportunity of making mistakes and taking a long time to do things. And it's going to be very hard. These people who are dependent on you, it's going to be very hard for them at first. They're going to protest you. They might push you away. Well, fine, you're dead to me. Oh, my goodness. Well, you're not invited to Christmas. Oh, boy. Like, I'm going to put some consequences on you because you left me hanging. So we have to decide how we're going to navigate those things. Sometimes there's reasons to stay involved, but the degree of involvement can potentially slowly change, right? Right? Just like with our kids, it's not like all of a sudden, okay, all of a sudden you are in charge of bathing yourself, cleaning yourself, getting yourself ready for school, making your own lunch, figuring out how to get there, and then also learning how to teach yourself how to drive. That's not how it works. There's a process. And you can use some scaffolding this process to teach other people how to handle their own stuff. Or maybe if you think they can handle it, even though they wouldn't like it, you can cut them off cold turkey. You can be very clear about what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do with regard to taking on their anxiety. Because the more they are dependent on you, the less they will try and solve their own problems. Why should I do that when I have the awesome helper just a phone call away? They're on speed dial. They're number 3, right? How do we feel about this idea? Good. I should have passed the microphone to you. I'm going to try and summarize for those of us who are viewing online. So the person who was dependent on us, if we let them know what our boundaries are, what we're willing to help with, what we're not willing to help with, they might protest us because they're expecting us to help out with everything. But then they might start to realize, oh, I can do this. Maybe they have some agency and mastery over dealing with their own problems, and then they can start to feel good about themselves and their ability to resolve their own stuff. I don't have to be dependent on others. Especially here in the Western world, there seems to be this bent toward independence, as if this is the best thing. No, I don't think that total independence is the best thing. I think we grow up in community, and I think we can lean into the strength of the community maybe a bit more often here in the Western world. But when we totally abandon community, I'm just going to be an individual. Bryan says I shouldn't rely on anybody else. That's not what I'm saying. Make an effort, right? If my daughter's trying to put on her shoes first, she's going to protest. I'm going to let her try. She's going to scream a little bit. She's going to get upset. One of the best things that I do is all right, go ahead and put on your shoes, and then I walk away to do something else. Because if I'm right there, she's not going to try very hard. Because the solution, the helper, is just, 2 feet away. But if you put those on, I'm going to go to the bathroom and get some water, get the car keys, I'm going to get the kite. You put your shoes on. She's going to protest, but she'll still be working on her shoes a lot better than if I'm right here. Okay, are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? You got to give them a little bit of space. Is there a hand over here?
Yeah, I thought it was a good thing you seriously
Mm-hmm. Mercy.
And so, you need to do nothing without it. So we need to get our priorities straight, but not very clearly are. But this is a balance. It's
When we grow up and we learn to be fiercely independent, sometimes we just rely on our own strength and our own wit and our own wisdom, and maybe we don't turn to God as soon as we should because we're just used to taking care of things ourselves. We just continue to do that, and then last resort, oh, maybe I should ask the omnipotent, divine, loving God to help me after I've put egg on my face. Yes?
Kind of piggybacking off that thought, you know, I guess it's our natural inclination to want to help out and help.
Mm-hmm. For some people. Mm-hmm.
What is the role of the person? We're the ones that need, you know, to be so ruggedly independent.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's hard for us to accept that.
Oh, yeah. It's hard to accept or ask help. Right? No, I'm okay. I can handle this. You're trying to carry this couch down the stairs by yourself. No, I got this. No, I'm a big boy. I can do this. Like, well, it sure would be. You wouldn't scrape as many walls. No, don't. Just back away. I got this. I have an independent streak in myself. If I'm in the middle of something, I do not appreciate when someone comes in. Hey, can I help you? Like, I will ask for help if I need it. It might take me 3 hours, but man, I'm going to do it. So there's a stubborn streak in Bryan, so I can relate to that.
Especially when we're trying to witness, bear witness to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we want to be out there helping people, but sometimes we deny people's blessings from us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, rugged independent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's those kind of things, you know, instead of helping that person, or being in the mindset of being no, well, if they help us, that would give them that one person.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps open the door for witnessing opportunities in that way. Instead of saying, hey, I helped you, not you have to listen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A one-sided relationship. And it's not just witnessing, it's, I think, just any sort of relationship. It doesn't feel good when it's one direction. I'm going to help you, but I'm not going to let you show hospitality towards me because I'm uncomfortable with that. And I'm uncomfortable with people taking care of me, maybe because I didn't get as much of it as I wanted to earlier in life. So my default is I could take care of myself. I don't want you stepping in to take care of me, but I'm okay helping you, but I'm not someone, my narrative about who I am, oh, I'm not someone who needs, oh, no, thank you, no, thank you. But it's a little bit unpleasant to have a friend always say, no, thank you, I don't want you. No, thank you, I don't need your help. That can be pretty upsetting as well. Is there another hand?
I just, you know, there's this ledger, there's this balance, and with my mind, it's a different hat. I don't like to get complicated, so I don't. I'm easily trapped, you know, and God's grace isn't that way. He didn't deserve anything. It's so opposite, and it's hard to, for me to transpose this into interpersonal relationships with human beings. I owe him everything,
Mm-hmm.
and I have nothing. I bring nothing to the table.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this, or, you know, hey, you know what I mean?
So the relationship between the divine and our humanity is different than our relationship with human to human. It's a very different sort of relationship. Okay, let me see where we're at here. Looking at the time. Okay, a little bit more. So let's increase our awareness of how we participate in triangles. Let's kind of open this up a little bit. And then we'll explore what we do differently. So we're going to talk about roles. So we'll be talking about roles this afternoon, and then tonight we'll talk about position and stability. Right, for the next few minutes, we're going to talk about roles in the triangle, the roles we play. Here's the first sort of role. And all these roles don't have to be present in a triangle. And we can play one role in one triangle, and then a different role in another triangle. Or we could play one role in one triangle, and then 10 minutes later play a different role. So these roles they fluctuate, they're dynamic. But these are the types of roles that we play. One, we can generate anxiety. We can introduce anxiety to the triangle. So we need an anxiety generator. The other role we can play is we amplify the anxiety, make a big deal about it. Make a big deal about it. The third role is to dampen the anxiety. So we introduce the anxiety to the triangle, we amplify it, make a big deal out about it, or we can dampen it. And each triangle does not necessarily need to have all three of these represented. So let's say a child can come home from school and say, oh, Mom, someone pushed me at school today. And the mom can go, what? Who pushed you? So we could see one person introduce the anxiety. The next person started to make a big deal. Well, I'm going to call your teacher right now. Like, get her on the phone and have a conversation with her. Oh boy, I just told you someone pushed me. You were like making a big deal about it. We saw this earlier with Rebecca, right? We heard what Esau said. Rebecca took that one sentence, I'm going to kill my brother when my father dies. And she made a huge deal about it. Even though in the middle of her explanation, she said, stay over there for a while until your brother forgets. This idea that, like, he's just hot-headed. He'll simmer down. But she made this big deal. You have to do this right now. Made a big deal about it. And then anxiety dampener is someone who calmly does not react to the anxiety that's brought into the triangle. So, anxiety generator is someone who brings some unresolved stuff into the triangle, introduces it, then someone else amplifies it. And sometimes the rescuer or the dismisser can amplify it. So if you're someone who likes to solve problems, you might inadvertently be amplifying the other person's anxiety. Hey, I have this problem. Oh no. Oh, that's really bad. I didn't think it was that bad. No, it's bad. It's bad. Let me tell you why. Because the same thing happened to me last year. We got to take care of this right now. I was just thinking, I was worried about these symptoms. No. We're get in the car. We're driving right now. Like, to rescue and help this person, they're actually amplifying. Someone who's trying to dampen through dismissal, this also can amplify the anxiety. Someone comes home from high school and says, Dad, I don't have any friends. No one talks to me. You'll be fine. You'll make friends later on. Oh boy, I worked up the courage to bring this to you, and you just told me it wasn't a big deal. By dismissing me, now it's a big deal. Now my father won't even listen to me. Oh my goodness, and maybe the father was just like, they'll figure it out, it's not that big of a deal. And maybe the father was trying to dampen, but in not a very effective way, because now this adolescent's like, okay, I guess I have no one to turn to. Now it's really my problem and I have no help, so that actually amplifies their anxiety. So trying to rescue someone or dismiss, it's not that big of a, that isn't happening to you, like, wake up, it's not that big of a deal. That's actually amplifying the anxiety as well. And then the dampener is someone who can calm down, is not activated by other people's distress. And I'm hoping all of us know at least one person that's like this. Like, man, when I'm in their presence, like I'm able to just breathe a little bit easier. The problems don't seem quite as big because it's not ruffling their feathers like it's ruffling mine. I'm getting all hot and bothered, but they seem cool, calm, and collected. And if you're able to be that person, you're able to help other people around you. And these roles are often subconscious. We aren't actively thinking, okay, I'm going to come and I'm going to generate some anxiety. Or next time someone tells me something, I'm going to make a big, hairy deal out of it. Or I'm going to stay calm no matter what. We're not thinking about it. This happens subconsciously. And we may start by introducing anxiety, then someone else amplifies it. And then we say, yeah, you're right. And then we make it even bigger. And there's this do-si-do. Let's go tell Maria about this. And we go talk with this person. Oh, how we resolve? There's a whole bunch of pushing the snow around. The truth is, the more times we amplify the anxiety, the bigger it gets. But if we're able to stay calm, and we're able to resolve our own tension, which is what we'll be talking about later, that issue, the challenge we have, the hot potato actually gets smaller when we're able to deal with it and address it ourselves. This is saying, why are you dragging all that negativity into this triangle? I don't like that negativity. Stop bringing that, making a big deal about it. Because it needed to be brought to your attention. You know I can't resist making mountains out of your molehills. This isn't even my molehill. I don't care whose it is, because now it's mine. We can take small things, make a big deal out of them, and the other person drops it, but we are still carrying it, because it's a big deal to us now, because we were willing to participate. Okay. This is the end of afternoon session, but I want to see if there are any questions you might have. questions about relational triangles, the role we play, because this evening, we're going to talk about our position in the triangle and the stability of the triangle. So I have no questions right now, which tells me you understand this perfectly, or you're still thinking about it, and maybe you might bring some questions this evening. Deal? Excellent. All right.